Hi, my name's Karen from Deadlifts and Red Lips, and I'm here today just to have a conversation about well-being and what that means to me. I always feel a little bit stuck when people ask me about well-being because it looks so different to all of us. It's such an individual thing, and for me, it changes constantly, like what I need, because that's one of the first things that I've learned throughout my well-being journey is that we have to be flexible. We have to be flexible with our tools, with our approaches, and I suppose a constant understanding that things change, and one thing that may have worked in the past may not work all the time for different situations. So for me, that's probably the one most important thing of my well-being journey is flexibility and being open to change and considering new things, especially as we learn new information too. If there's one thing I've learned in life, it's that life is not linear. It goes like this. um, so yeah, I think being flexible allows us to adapt quickly when things change and helps us to stay um, on our well-being journey. For me, my habits tend to change around my mental health. So I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression over 10 years ago now, and I think for me the pivotal point of my well-being was leaning into acceptance that this is my life and depression and anxiety was going to be a part of it. So it was learning how to adapt and manage that within my life, within my well-being journey. So for me, acceptance played a massive role, and then again the flexibility, because again, mental health isn't linear. That's very up and down. So it's being able to give myself the chance, to be flexible and to change my practices around that. So on the days that I have very low energy, I allow myself to take a much slower approach to life and take more rest. I think rest is something that a lot of us don't believe we're worth and we struggle with, and actually rest is so restorative and therapeutic, and it's definitely helped me on my well-being journey to include rest as an intentional part of my well-being toolkit. So some well-being practices that are personal to me and that help me stay committed to my well-being journey are self-reflection. I think that's a really big being able to self-reflect and take responsibility for your own actions and know when you might need to learn more about something, or when you might need to unlearn something, or when we need to change our behaviours. So self-reflection has been a big part of my journey with well-being. And then also my spiritual practices like meditation. I do use tarot for guidance, and I do a moon ritual. So that's really lovely and feels quite intuitive, and it ties in with the self-reflection because you're constantly making intentions, constantly checking in with them, releasing things that are no longer serving us. It feels like an opportunity each month to check in and really get clear about your boundaries, your intentions, goals, releasing things. I find it ties in really well with self-development, and of course it all underpins the well-being journey that I've created for myself. Another important part of my toolkit is regular movement. Regular movement for me is probably one of the most important parts of my self-care well-being toolkit. Movement, it can be meditative for me. It's restorative. It's a way for me to process things. It's a way for me to really feel good in my body and the things that it can do. Especially now that I'm on the other side of movement for health support and for an intuitive relationship with my body. So it feels so nourishing and supportive. And I love strength training, particularly deadlifts and red lifts. That's I'm missing deadlifts right now because obviously the gyms are closed in the UK, but I've been making the most of things at home. So for me, yeah, it's movement. Movement is a big part of my life, and also adapting movement as I need to, again, as part of the flexibility of my well-being toolkit. So I've learnt now to not push through hard feelings. Sometimes I need to be really gentle with myself, and so that is when I will go for walks in the woods, or even just to walk around my local estate if I need to just get outside in nature and fresh air. Because sometimes when I'm feeling quite sensitive, I don't want to be doing anything that feels hard physically. So again, that's that flexibility of checking in, like noticing how we feel and how can we adapt our practices in order to support ourselves in that moment. And as a personal trainer as well, I advocate for people to build an intuitive relationship with movement based on their own individual circumstances and through enjoyment and reclaiming fitness for ourselves away from the the conditioned belief that it's all about weight loss, when it doesn't have to have anything to do with weight loss if you don't want it to. In regards to food, I don't have any beliefs around food other than food is food and it holds no moral value. I actually work within a framework of intuitive eating, so I've unlearned a lot of habits that were disordered to me, and I'm now like on the other side of that journey within the gentle nutrition stage of intuitive eating. So I eat intuitively and also just try and pay a bit more attention to fruits and veggies and getting vitamins and minerals in. That's like the only, I suppose that's the main thing that I focus on, is quite having a varied diet, but also I eat what I want when I want. Like I don't attach any moral value to food, and that's been really a very useful part of my journey with my well-being and coming on from the other side of diet culture. I think the biggest part of my well-being journey for me has been how it's been supportive of my mental health, because adapting and being able to build a wellbeing toolkit it's enabled me to continue working and managing life and still being able to function in a way that I can have a good quality of life. So my wellbeing toolkit is that's what supports me with my mental health, and that's been the biggest turning point for me. In regards to my circle, my family, I think I'm of the belief that well-being is autonomous and it's going to look completely different for every individual. How I take care of myself may look completely different to how somebody else needs to take care of themselves. So I would say that I don't really preach well-being at anyone else. I just hold space for conversations, to chat about. I suppose I just share if people ask, or it's modelling behaviour, isn't it? And just holding space for conversations around differences, and knowing that there's not one right way, there's not one right approach that's going to be right for everyone. It's about taking bits of things that we learn along the way and making that an individual process for us. So I suppose that would be my number one tip, actually, for somebody starting out on their wellbeing journey, and that is there's a lot of information out there, and I think we can sometimes get a bit overwhelmed by it all. So I would remember that there is not one way that works for every single person. So I think it's about gathering information and holding on to the things that feel relatable to you, holding on to the things that work for you, and discarding the things that don't. And also knowing that be flexible. that there might be things that don't work now that you may come back to in the future. So it's just being able to adapt as we grow and evolve in a supportive and compassionate way for ourselves and for other people. So you can find me over on Deadlifts and Red Lips on Instagram. I advocate actually for very short 10-minute workouts as part of a self-care toolkit, a well-being toolkit, because I think especially as things are right now, it can be really hard to find the motivation to get going. So I think 10 minutes is a really good compromise with ourselves, and that is another part of my toolkit, by the way, where when I've got low energy but I know that movement helps to make me feel good, it boosts my energy, it makes me feel accomplished, so I would negotiate with myself and tell myself just 10 minutes. You can do 10 minutes of anything, and that was how the 10-minute workouts came about. But would love to see you over there.